Welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm Jill Ferguson, your host, and I have a fabulous guest today. I'm so excited about this person being my guest. My guest today is Dr. Adrian Fung. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Joe.
And we have known each other for a really long time, right?
Yes,
How many
yes.
years? Maybe 20?
I think about like 20 years. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And over that course of time, I've watched your amazing career, right? It's had all these turns and twists. And um, when we first met, you were finishing a degree and had founded a quartet. You wanted to tell me a little bit about your quartet because you really love music, right?
I
That's
do.
one of the things that's
That's
the love of your life.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's the love of my life, and I've kind of found music through a mistake. My mother was a piano teacher.
okay.
And I hated it. I hated piano. I would throw daily temper tantrums at the foot of the piano. And my mom finally just said, okay, look, fine. You don't have to learn the piano, but you have to learn something. How about the violin or the cello? Because you can have friends and whatever. And I was like not a very cultivated 8-year-old, let's say, because I was like, the violin is for girls.
Okay.
Thought the cello was a bassoon, which was this big stack of a wind instrument. And so I said, listen, I want to play the cello. So my mom brought home a cello, and I said, Mom, what happened? Like I said, I don't want to play the violin. This is the biggest one I've ever seen in my life. And then she looks it up.
I love that.
Yeah, she showed me a
Yeah.
magazine saying like, no, listen, this is literally a cello, and we leased it for a year, so you got to learn it for a year. So I came across this as a mistake, and I grew to love it because of my love for music is not just the intrinsic qualities of it. Some people love melody and they feel something, but I felt that there was incredible utility to music, which is that although you can't be ordering a cheeseburger with music with that kind of specificity, what I found was when my father passed on when I was 12 years old, that the cello had a wiser command of language. It could say things that I couldn't say in English.
Wow.
And so it was
Beautiful.
yeah, it was from there that I felt that it was not just something that I loved, but something that took care of me.
Wow. That's just so gorgeous. And it's been lifelong for you now, right?
Yes, yes, in different guises, as you mentioned. One of the things that I love most is when we met. We were in different roles in different
Mhm.
places. You were this incredibly inspiring teacher that was opening up the minds of musicians that were fairly single tracked.
Mhm.
Like San Francisco
Yeah.
Conservatory has incredibly talented musicians that believe they're either going to be a soloist, an orchestra player, or a
Yeah.
chamber musician, basically performing full time. Whereas the studies show us that the majority of arts graduates are self-employed and likely doing several other things.
Hmm.
And
Or they go to law school or med school or something
exactly,
else.
they end up doing
Yeah.
something or
Yeah.
founding tech companies or coffee companies and things
Yeah.
like that. And I have to say, like, your hand in all of this is that you opened up things that were deep in terms of like postmodernist literature, the Garden of the Finzi Continis,
Mhm.
and like I still remember everything that you taught, but also what you did in terms of like the brass tacks of communication and in terms of the entrepreneurial skills, and you really led by example, because even when you were teaching you were writing and publishing and speaking and doing all sorts of things. And I think that for me was a huge inspiration for how I thought, you know what, even though I had founded a string quartet and we're doing all of the traditional things, w- there must be something more. I
But you were also doing non-traditional things with your string quartet. I mean, one of my favorite stories about the things you did was to go into like public schools in New York City, right, and show kids like this is a cello and we play classical music, right?
right,
And but look, I can play rap or hip hop on this instrument just as easily,
that's
right?
right. Yes.
And that just blew me away because I thought that just was such an inspiration and reached kids in a way that traditional classical music wasn't going to reach them,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. And I think that there is so much of that happening now, and in my if we're talking about outreach and playing in schools and playing in prisons and
Mhm.
playing for retirement homes, playing in after school programs. I found that the most important thing is, like, yes, I've spent like 15,000 hours on the cello, and uh, but to go to people and just play, here I am and I'm going to play something for you,
Uh,
instead of here I am and tell me about yourself and your stories so we can do something together. Like, I want to do something with you. And I think that there's this element that I I learned when we mentioned the hip hop thing.
mhm.
I remember never being more nervous than when I was in Harlem, and there's a whole group of teenagers, and they knew their stuff. And I was more nervous than when we did our international competitions, because here we are as a string quartet, and I have to trot out some skills.
Uh-huh.
And but it was really interesting because of the learning that one could have even in those situations. And I think it's because of that early outreach that has helped us create some of the greatest, our more successful projects have
Mhm.
been through that lens of learning from other people, collaborating with people that are wildly different,
Mhm.
that generally in musical classical music collaborations, we kind of miss the part where we're like, hey, like, what can we learn from you?
So talk about a little bit about that, because you've been working with a DJ, right, for at least 10 years now.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
and that was an unexpected kind of twist in your career,
Yeah,
and certainly in the classical music field, right, if you will.
that's
We'll put that
right.
in quotes.
Yeah,
So tell us about that a little bit, because I know that's really a passion project of yours, and it has been from the get-go.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And I do have to flag something here,
Mhm.
in our communications, the wonderful course that you taught, it was so much about how somebody would receive your message. It's not so much about how you craft a message, it's about, like, where these people are.
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna be in a busy airport? Are they gonna be in a cafe? And so Kid Koala, who is this incredible DJ, like, for your audience, they may know Kid Koala, but how I know him is he was part of the Gorillas when they did Clint Eastwood, and he was part of Deltron 3030, which is this incredible rap collaboration with Dan the Automator and Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Kid Koala. They created this incredible album that really changed how people thought about hip hop sound. And Kid Koala happened to be Canadian, as I am, and I just hit him up on Instagram. I didn't know him from before. I just told him, this is what I do every day when I come to the cello. I touch sound. I'm touching the strings, and I'm feeling the vibration of the cello that sits on my chest. And I said that because I researched him, and there was an interview where he was saying that what he loves about scratch DJ art is that he gets the sense that he can touch sound, that
Wow.
the vinyls were, and he can manipulate. And so from that common place, we've done several world tours.
Mhm.
He's an incredible creative mind that created this basically there's 20 mini sets, and you shot it live to a screen, and we are playing music live while it's being self-directed, the puppets that are on the scene. And we've gone through all different types of landscapes, musical landscapes and creative landscapes, that I felt that there was this incredible sense of vulnerability. And so our latest projects are based on one of our projects, which is Spin Cycle, where you have composers write a specific piece. Like, we had 4 quartets written for us, and another DJ scratched Bastard. He came and remixed him as a second layer. And instead of stopping there, we had the composers write us back in. So everybody kind of had to earn the right
Oh
to,
wow.
right? Because the composers weren't just writing something for a scratch DJ thinking, oh, the scratch DJ, they don't know anything about the counterpoint and the harmony we're doing, so we're just going to write their music for them. When they saw what this DJ could do to the string quartets they had created, their eyes were as big as dinner plates. They're like, wow. So when they responded and they had this collaboration, it's truly something earned. And I learned this through what I was saying in terms of that outreach in hip hop. I came in. This is a fairly funny story that really is true and a little bit embarrassing for me. But I was at Juilliard, and I was an undefeated battle rapper. Back in the day, being a
Mhm,
battle rapper meant that you would improvise. You don't write any lines. Like nowadays, battle rap people prepare, and
mhm.
it's not even a beat sometimes. But there's a DJ back in the day. There's a DJ that puts on this music, and you have to rap to it. And you have 30 seconds to rap about your opponent. So a lot of times it's about what they look like and things like that, because you don't know who you're going to be matched up against. And I was undefeated in my city of Toronto. We go down to New York, and I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, I think I'm either gonna blow up as a rapper or as a cellist, I don't know which one." And I had a music video with me rapping and playing the cello at the same time. I had CDs out already that were self-produced, but I show up
There,
at.
some of those were on YouTube back in the day. I don't
Yeah,
know if
they
they
were.
still are because I used to see them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right,
yeah.
that's right.
Are they still there?
No, I deleted them, and now I would put them back up, but I can't find them. So, like,
Oh,
word to the rise, if you have something, don't delete it, just unlist it, you know?
yeah.
But, I went to this after school program, Jill, in Harlem, and I went there, and I played for them, and I rapped and played, and I showed them my music video. So it was kind of like, "Oh, Adrian is coming to do this
Mhm.
kind of celebrity thing." And at the end, the program, his name was, I still remember his name is Johnny Acevedo. We all called him Johnny Ace.
Mhm.
And he said, "Did you know that Adrian is an undefeated battle rapper in Toronto?" And they said, "So, Adrian, would you battle one of them?" And so this I think 11-year-old girl jumps up on the stage, and immediately I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna just I can't destroy her here," because
Yeah.
my problem is the first thing I think of are lines that I think might make an 11-year-old girl cry, and I just thought, "Oh, I better not." So the beat went on, and I just said something like, "Oh, let's wait for the beat to end and forget about the battle. Let's just be friends," something really silly. And then she gets the mic, and there's glint in her eye, and I was like, "Uh-oh." She said, I still remember her line. She says, "I'm the black bomb. I'm the black Shaq Kwan. You look like you're 33. You still live with your mom." And then she started rapping in this cadence that just got everybody bouncing in this after school
Uh-huh.
program, and she destroyed me. And then I was just like, I didn't know
On
she
her own home turf, by the way.
was home turf.
Yeah.
That's true. But then Johnny Ace goes, "Who thought Adrian won?" It was like crickets. "Who thought Letitia won?" It was like, boom, everybody was like, and I was so embarrassed because here I am, like, trotting out my cello and my rap and my music video and stuff, and I said to Johnny, I said, "You gotta give me another round, like, I've never been defeated." And he goes, "Sorry, it's, like, it's getting dark, they have to go home." And so, and almost as insult to injury, she jumps off the stage and starts skipping rope with her friends. So it was like, it was very, but it taught me something, because the way that she moved with her rhythm, I was like, "You know what? I've come across this embarrassing." Yeah, it was embarrassing that I lost, but it was more embarrassing that I came in thinking I was gonna be teaching them something, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, it starts from learning first. And so from that edge, I think that's how some of our more interesting projects have been able to come to life.
That's beautiful. So beautiful. So what else have you been doing? What other kinds of, you know, projects, work?
Yeah,
Right. You said you got married at the end of last year, I heard.
I got married. I eloped. It was pretty funny.
Oh, good. Where'd you
Um,
elope to?
I just
Yeah.
New York, New
Okay.
York City. It was in Central Park.
Yeah. Oh,
There's only 4 people there. My best friend had just recently gotten officiated, or
yeah.
become an officiant, and, his wife was the witness. It was a very small affair,
Good.
and, it was so funny. He was clearly getting nervous. He was messing up words, and he was like, "Oh, you know what? I didn't mean that. Like, go back 2 sentences." And he mutters to me out of the side of his mouth, "Sorry, this is just my 2nd time."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, don't worry. It's my 2nd time too."
Way to diffuse the situation. Good.
Yeah,
So
but it
your daughter wasn't there for the wedding?
no, my
No.
daughter wasn't there for the elopement, because, like, what we're gonna do is probably have a ceremony later,
Okay.
where it's gonna be more of like, she wants to be a flower, she wants to bake a cake, she wants to do all sorts
Uh-huh.
of things. So we're gonna do that in a few months, but it's more probably 8 months from now or something. It's good that you mentioned this, because I need to make sure that we keep that there. But, The projects that we're working on now,
Mhm.
or I'm working on, I run an organization in Vancouver. It's a concert society. It's been running for 40 years. I've been running it only for 7, but it's been around for about 41 years. And and I run 2 companies. One is a digital marketing firm, consulting firm, where we specialize in bringing new ticket buying audiences to arts organizations. And the other one is a higher education institution consulting firm where we deal with curricula and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And do you love it, or are you did you did it come about because you saw a need?
Yeah. Yeah, like, this is really interesting that you mentioned that, because I think, and this is not a great thing, it it has its weaknesses, but for a while, everything I did was I had to cultivate the fun in everything that I did, and that helped me get better at a lot of things, but then it became a little like I traipsed into this place where I was saying, like, I love everything that I do, and so in order to be when anything was difficult, I told myself I loved it, so I could dive into it.
Wow.
And something happened, like, now I can't tell myself I love doing taxes, like, I have an actual physical repulsion to it, but I do, one thing that I'm very thankful for is I do have a long attention span for things I really love.
Mhm.
I do struggle with ADHD. So I definitely have found that in the weakness there are certain strengths. There's certain
Yeah.
things that I've been able to work out. And do I love the digital marketing thing? Not at the forefront. At the forefront is trying to solve a problem. Everybody's talking about declining subscriptions and ticket
Mhm.
sales. And so I researched this. I used to be an associate professor
Mhm.
and a dean, and I was able to raise some money to start a little bit of a research institute around social media
Mhm.
and digital marketing practices. And I realized that in the arts, we're doing a fraction of what is possible,
Yeah.
especially with the democratization of all the technological tools that we have. And so I founded this firm after all of this base of research, where I was able to actually move tickets, and it's incredible the power that one can wield in this sense. And I loved being able to solve that problem. Being an artistic
Mhm.
director and having a project where, like, I don't know if 11 people are gonna show up or not.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I know exactly, not exactly, but I have a much better science around it, and I'm able to help very large organizations with this same approach. So I like that part of it.
Mhm.
And, and the curriculum thing, like dealing with higher education, is huge for me because, so much of what we are taught is only based on craft. And it's hasn't changed much from 1795 when the Paris Conservatory
Yeah.
trying to handle, like, and they had, like, a very interesting, like, set of agenda items, right? They were trying to increase GDP, and they're trying to prove to the French government that they should actually be an institution, a national institution.
Mhm.
And so they decided, we're going to try to teach music in such a way that's the most scalable. That's why solfege and all these things. And Europe
Mhm.
basically let it happen. There was, like, a lot of people were accepting that the Paris Conservatory was good at teaching the basic
Mhm.
foundation. The curriculum hasn't changed much. It's been very craft-based, not very experiential, not very much on in terms of the entrepreneurship that I think 1700s Leipzig, like Bach and Telemann, how they learned was very different than some kind of structured, scalable curriculum. So it really, like, I felt that I had to cobble together my education in that sense,
Mhm.
and it's so important for higher education, especially arts students who are coming in pre-professional training,
Mhm.
think that they're going to get these jobs, and then come out and realize, oh my goodness, I need to be approaching this in a completely different way, and I haven't had
Yeah.
those skills.
But that's true. The I mean, the structure hasn't changed over hundreds of years, but also there's still this feeling, if you will, that you haven't kind of made it in music unless you've gotten a degree or you've done this, you've been through these hoops, right? That were the traditional hoops.
Hmm.
And a couple years ago, I was at a house concert that a violinist was putting on. And during COVID, of course, house concerts or yard concerts popped up all over the place because musicians couldn't perform in traditional venues. And so in our neighborhood, there were all these people putting on, like, quartets were coming, and individual musicians, and they were playing in people's front yards, or they'd shut down the street and play in the street for a little while. And it gave them, ready-made cash to sustain their lifestyles. But one
Sure.
of the guys, Jordan, who is a fabulous violinist, his mother teaches at USC, and he never finished his bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And he was performing at this house concert one night. It was a Christmas concert. And the night before the concert, he had opened at the Hollywood Bowl for Beyonce.
Wow.
And he's playing his music, and we take a break, and he announces to everybody who's assembled, there's like 30 something people at this house, that he's debating if he should go back to school and finish his bachelor's degree because he never finished his degree.
Right.
And I stopped him, and I just said, "Hi." I said, "So here's the thing." I said, "I taught at one of the top conservatories in the United States, taught there for 13 years."
Hmm.
I said, "And you opened for Beyonce last night. You've opened for a lot of, like, musicians that my students would love to be able to open for."
Yes.
I
Yes.
said, "So they went and got their degrees, and they're still trying to get to where you are. So I don't understand why you feel you need this degree."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I said, "Why don't you just keep doing what you're doing,
Yes.
and keep going after, your dreams of playing professionally on the biggest stages, because that's what you're already doing."
Exactly.
And he just stopped, and he looked at me, and he was like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." And it goes back to what you said earlier, where, a lot of your colleagues, the students that I've had over the years, are now doctors and lawyers and accountants and financial people, and they're playing in groups on the side, right?
Right. Right.
And but that's not their full-time job. And if they do have a full-time job, most of them are teaching
Yeah.
and playing part-time.
That's right.
And so I think we buy into this, like, we need it. It's always great if we can follow what our heart's desire is and what we love, and get training in it.
Hmm.
And some reason or another, we assume that that's going to fulfill us, and that we're going to be able to make it
Yeah.
as a career,
That's
right?
That's right.
But the reality is that that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate for studying things you don't love, because then why bother? And that's just going to drive you crazy, right? But we kind of need to redefine how we look at things and what's of value to us,
Right.
in the way that we go after things. And it reminds me of whenever you were at Iowa and you were the dean there, and you were looking at creating an entrepreneurship program for musicians, so they understood how, or people in the arts, of any kind of arts, understanding how do you run a business to
Yeah.
do this,
That's
right?
that's right. Yeah. One of the things. So in Oklahoma, one of the things I noticed
I'm
is that
sorry,
these people.
Oklahoma, not Iowa.
I love Iowa too. You know, you're right. Most of them will be teaching, and I don't remember what the exact percentages, but it's 75 to 80% of musicians are going to be teaching, even in part of the time. And when that is the when you're most likely to be a private studio teacher, right,
Mhm.
teaching from your
Yeah,
home, none of those skills were actually imparted.
yeah,
Right? Like, how do you actually do that? How do you invoice? How do you create all these things?
yeah.
And so it is so important. And one of the things that I think is so good about you and your work, Jill, is that we were in this place in San Francisco, and you were not just very musically inclined. You went to all of the concerts. You're an artist, right? You paint, you write, you understand musicians and the creative soul, and you're
Mhm.
able to engage with students, especially students like me. And like, I'd come into doing my bachelor's a little bit late in my life, because I was doing all these diploma
Mhm.
programs elsewhere. And I had to take, a creative writing course for Gen Ed, but it's actually one of the most valuable courses in my entire training. Like, if you go from almost anything that I've done, from the undergraduate diplomas to my doctorate, like, the most important thing was the creative writing, the communication, and the European literature and postmodernism. Like it was these things really stretched my mind, and the way that we went about it helped me to see where I was in context, not just historically from the European literature aspect of things, but also in terms of how you're actually dealing with the fundamental materials of communication in the digital age. Like
Mhm.
you got down to all of those things. And then there was the incredible educational content of your example, which is what you were doing as a professor, as the chair of the department of academic studies, as an entrepreneur. And you were also teaching, I think you were also a professor at another university in the state, doing all of these things.
I was teaching in their school of business. So
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
when I see you, when I think of you, I think I think of possibility, the entire sense
Oh,
of
thank you.
possibility.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
I
Thank
mean, yeah.
you. Thank you. I try to look at any encounter with anybody I even meet as that, right? It's all what's possible here. Is there a collaboration that's possible?
Mhm.
Is it, what are the ways that we can possibly touch each other's lives, right?
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter if it's just somebody you're passing on the street or somebody that's sitting at a table and you're in a restaurant and they're next to you and
yeah,
they say hey or whatever. But
yeah,
it's like, and it's not in a, I want to get something from this person,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's, we're human beings. Let's see if there's some way we can connect.
exactly. Yeah, I
Right?
love that.
And that's the whole reason I started this company, right? Is because we live in a time where it's super divisive,
Mhm,
and we have, politicians trying to create chaos all over the place.
mhm, mm,
And say like, well, we like our stuff better than yours, so we're going to tariff this or whatever, and we're going to bomb you, and we're making all these threats, and and it's happening all over the world. It's
yeah,
not just the US and fighting with Canada or the US and fighting with Mexico, or well, the US and fighting with everybody right now. um, but it's we live in a world where there's too much of that, right? There's on an individual level, on a government level,
mhm,
on a corporate level,
mhm,
um, and so I feel like there needs to be more connection, one on one. Like,
yeah,
yeah, your opinion may differ than mine on a number of things, but let's talk and let's figure out. Let me understand you.
yeah,
Where are you coming from?
yeah,
Where can we find common ground? And it's, you said so beautifully about the projects you've been doing with Kid Koala and all the others, right? Where you're looking at, let's collaborate, just like you did with the kids in Harlem. Like
mm,
I'm not going in here as a sage on the stage to impart my wisdom to you,
right,
right?
yeah,
It's more of the Buddhist philosophy of everybody around
yeah,
us has
yeah,
something to teach us, and I'm
exactly.
always a student.
And Jill, that's why, that your teaching style, you always commanded the respect. And of course, there was grades and those things, right? But you also had this incredible humility where you want to hear people's thoughts, and you were having these conversations, and there was, talking about love, I really feel that we had that those rules: a teacher, a student, care for one another.
Yeah.
And these parlayed really well, or they transferred very well into after graduation, and our friendship
Mhm.
continued
Yeah.
through. And it's because some people get awkward. Like I played with cellists that were like I had all their CDs, and they were my teacher, and then suddenly I had to play with them, and I had called them, by their last name, Mr. So and so. And then when we're playing, I'd say to the person, because chamber music is a collaborative democracy.
Hmm.
We approach it, right? So
Yeah.
I'd ask, "Oh, Mr. So and so, should we do an up bow or down bow?" And most of the time, they would say, it doesn't always know as Mr. It might also be Miss.
Yeah.
Bonnie Hampton,
Yeah.
who is also at the San Francisco Conservatory, would say, "Hey, let's no more of this like Mr. and Mrs. stuff. If we're gonna play together, you got to call me by my first name." And it was just impossible for me to do, just because the entire relationship had always been this. But I think that's one of the great things about about your style and the thing that you contribute to the world, to anybody that gets the opportunity to be in the same room with you, is that you're always engaging, like you just said, and you engage in such a way that can actually open up several. You are the same Jill Ferguson in all different ecosystems, and you add value in each and every one.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
That's
of
so sweet.
course.
I I've never really looked at it that way. I try to be my authentic self and show
Mhm.
up the same, you
Yeah,
know, everywhere.
yeah,
And just like in the classroom, where I totally believe that the whole role of teaching literature is to teach creative thinking,
yeah,
or and critical thinking.
yes,
That it's not just to, like, okay, let's talk about who the protagonist is and what the plot structure is and all that.
yes,
It's like, no, it's what can we take from this story and apply to our lives and understand.
yes.
And we have amazing. One of the guitarists at the conservatory one day popped by my office, and he said, "Oh my God, I was standing in Whole Foods looking at two different products and debating which one I was buying." He
Wow.
said, "And it occurred to me that that's what you were doing in your classes." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You were teaching me to think critically and evaluate things." He's like, "But you never, ever said that to us."
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "No, I just asked a lot of questions all the time." And because that's what I think about life, right? We've lost a lot of people have lost the critical thinking skill. They follow whatever their news program that they prefer says. They
Mhm.
don't question any of the information that comes from it.
Yeah,
They don't question,
yeah,
anything around them.
exactly.
And we can't just be little bumps on a log and just go through life twiddling our thumbs and thinking, okay, well, whatever, it's all out of my control.
Right.
Yeah, some of it's out of our control, but on the other hand, what are you going to do about that? Right? Are
Mhm.
you going to sit passively, or are you going to find out what's real?
Yeah,
Right? What's factual?
yes, yes,
And
100.
where in my you know little worldview and where can you show love to other people who need it?
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I would agree with that guitarist, that you were kinda Miyagiing everybody, like, you wax on, wax off,
Yeah.
and actually learning how to block and attack. The I remember I found some of the postmodernist literature just so, like, obtuse and long,
Yeah.
and you explained that, well, that's also kind of the message. That's also the medium,
Yeah.
and I remember getting to the bottom of certain things, like, the color green and the Breton work,
Yeah.
in Naja, I think it was. I forget the title of the book. I just remember what the
Uh-huh.
learn is, which is, um, like, that reality may not be exactly what's in front of you. What matters more, what you asked us. You said, like, is does it matter more what everybody feels and reacts, and inside their insides are being rearranged because of it, even if it's not something that physically happened? Which one is more real? And I
Mhm.
thought that was a very useful and guiding principle for life in general, like the practicalities of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we have in common is a love of dogs. I know
That's
we're running out of time. So talk to me about, do you have a pet right now or dog right now?
No, I don't.
Oh,
Yeah, I used to have. I mean,
yeah.
dogs are dogs are family. They are the most noble, beautiful creatures. I grew up with dogs. We had 5 dogs when I was in high school, and each of them had such, like, like stark personality differences. We had a really pretty one that was a half Pomeranian that would just, like, very sweet, but just would get stuck in the curtains. And then we had one that looked dopey, and his name was Coco, and he was so smart,
Yeah.
and he looked kinda like Wicket in the Ewoks. And so he doesn't look like the most
Yeah.
smart, but he was, like, intelligent as anything, and they all had wonderful things to share, and the loss of a pet, like, my heart goes out so deeply to those that, they it is such an incredible relationship. And I know you just went through a harrowing time. There was a good story at the end of it, but I know that must have been.
Yeah, we're still working through some of it, but yeah, I had a well, I had a dog that I got in 2022. And this year he started having epileptic seizures, and it's very, very stressful to go through that. He had a number of them over the course of 10 days and was in and out of the dog ER.
Yeah.
And now he's on drugs for anticonvulsants, and they seem to be working. So,
Oh, good.
or, you know, we're definitely on pins and needles for a while there. Like, is it going to work? Is it going to work? Are we going to be woken up in the middle of the night with him seizing again and need to rush him to the ER?
Yeah.
It's just an awful thing to go through with a human or an animal that is in the middle of a seizure.
Yes.
So
What is one of the worst things about that experience?
feeling powerless,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you really can't do anything to stop it. We do now have some kind of medicine that's in a syringe and has a long tube on the end, and if he gets into the 4-minute mark or more having the seizure, then we have to shoot the medicine up his nose, because once we get to 5 minutes or more, it causes brain damage,
Oh my God.
or it can. And the first seizure he ever had was a 5-minute seizure.
Oh,
So I just, like, I said to the nurse, like, could you, while he's seizing, right, because he's on the ground, he's shaking, is moving like crazy. It's like, how easy is it to shove this thing up his nose while he's in the middle of there? Because they tell you, like, keep your hands free of his mouth area because he may accidentally bite you.
yeah. Right. Right.
And yeah, so it just, that feeling of total powerlessness,
Mhm.
and watching something that can't help itself and you can't help it either, and you just have to wait until it's over.
Yeah.
It's that way with kids when kids do things too.
Mm.
Small children
Yeah.
have something that you really can't stop them from hurting themselves on,
Right.
and you can only pick up the pieces afterwards. That's how it feels,
Oh my
and
God.
and so it's heartbreaking in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
imagine it's also like the communication, like you're not able to tell them what's happening, and
no, and they
yep.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
But
Right.
my vet said to me that basically when an animal has a seizure, all they do is lose time
Oh.
in their heads, because they don't remember any of it.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know how we know that for sure, other than maybe humans don't either.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Might be it.
yeah. The strange thing for me about that was that I feel like the universe prepares us for whatever's coming in our life, whether we understand it at the time or not.
Mm.
And back in July of last year, I was flying to my parents for my dad's 80th birthday.
Okay.
And my flights got delayed and got delayed and got delayed. And I ended up stuck overnight in Atlanta because I got rescheduled to a flight on the next day then,
Right.
because the flight got canceled. And I was standing the next day, and that flight kept getting delayed too. And I was standing in the Atlanta airport outside a store because I had decided that I needed some iced tea, and I had had a big salad for lunch, and I decided I needed some carbs. So I grabbed some potato chips and some iced tea. I was standing with my potato chips and iced tea outside the store against the wall, and there was a man sitting on the floor next to me. And
Mm.
he said hi, and I said hi. And then a few minutes, like probably a minute and a half later, I watched him, his arms went up in the air like this twice. And I was like, oh, that's weird. What is he doing? And then all of a sudden, he started flopping like a fish and on his side, and he had a seizure. And
Right.
he smashed open the back of his head on the concrete floor, and there was blood everywhere. And I screamed into the store for them to call the medics.
Yeah.
And the medics came, and all these people were walking past and totally not paying any attention.
Right.
And at the time, I thought, oh my, I knew that basically spirit had me standing right there next to him, because I pay attention to people around me.
Mm-hmm.
And all these other people were going past, and he's doing all this craziness right on the floor, and they're having to walk around him, and they're not stopping.
Right.
And they got him so that he you know was the medics came on bikes, and then they came with a stretcher after that, and they um, cleaned up his head and made sure he was okay. And
Right.
then they came and talked to me because they said, like, did he have a head injury that caused the seizure? And I said, no, 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 the seizure caused the head injury.
Mm.
And they said that that really matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the first time in my life I've ever been near somebody who's had a seizure. And I realized that in all the first aid training I've ever been through,
Mhm.
that's one piece that has been left out of my first aid training that I had, because I didn't even know what to do.
Right.
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 And then we come January. So that's at the end of July and January. And I'm all of a sudden, for the second time in my life in months, right, going through somebody with a seizure.
Right. Right.
And it was like, oh, wow. Like, I, I felt like maybe slightly more prepared
Mhm.
than I would have been.
Sure.
Still not prepared, because I don't think anybody can ever prepare for that completely.
Right.
But yeah. And so I think that we go through life having encounters, meeting people, seeing things that
Mhm.
prepares us for other things, right?
Right.
Just like your career, having those moments in Harlem has
Mm.
prepared you for all the stuff you're doing now,
That's right. That's
right?
right. Yeah. And they're often, like, deeply uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, mine was a very embarrassing situation where I felt like I had my tail between my legs, and but there was a learning situation there, and I'm sure it was very disconcerting to have somebody, immediately, and maybe that abruptness is what you were prepared for in some ways, like, you have to keep your head about you even when all this stuff is happening.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that what was I going to say? Oh, I don't remember. Uh, oh, when you were saying with your tail between your legs, I I didn't see it that way necessarily. I
Mhm.
see that as you being really nice to a child because you didn't want to make her cry and be nasty, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's almost like you agreed to accept defeat before you even started
Oh, ah,
on
that's
some level.
good, Jill. Yeah, I never yeah, maybe you're right. I never saw it that way. It may have yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
But I also feel like we don't grow in situations where we're comfortable.
Mhm.
Not in the same way that we grow in situations where there's discomfort.
That's
So
right.
discomfort's actually a positive thing in our lives
Yeah,
because it's always teaching us something.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's as a counterpoint to the rap story, I don't remember, I think it was in the same year, and I was wearing a suit and like a full tux. I was going down to NYU to play a show, and I had my cello with me, and this gentleman walks in and he starts rapping. He's trying to busk, get some money.
Mhm.
And I was eating a sandwich or something, and he wasn't very good. He was like, "Look at this little Chinese kid. He's rapping with his lunch. He better watch out because I could knock him over with a punch." And it was just very like it wasn't great. And so I don't remember what I did, but I remember rapping. I just responded to him, and I said something about. Um, don't go up to Chinese kids, eating their sandwiches because they could probably rip you up in 3 different languages, like, stuff like that. And at the end, like, everybody like, the subway car, I'm not saying that everybody stood up and started clapping,
Yeah,
but some people clapped because they this was a very funny scene that just
yeah.
happened. And as I was getting up, I gave him $5, and I just said, "Hey, look, like, it takes courage to whatever." And he goes, "Hey, whoa, 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 before you go, I just came from Atlanta trying to make my rap career start." He goes, "But tell me, does everyone in New York rap?" Because here I am in my tux and cello, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "No, you just got unlucky," and I felt that, at that point, I was looking at that as I tell that counterpoint when I feel like I need to redeem myself. I'm not a terrible rapper, but at the same time, I think there was also love there that I felt for him because I
Yeah.
know the courage. It takes courage, and he wasn't going to be getting much attention if I
Mhm.
didn't also
Yeah.
respond. But I also wanted to let him know there's a humility aspect here. Like you got to work on your game a little bit too,
Yeah.
right? So I thought that was what you just ushered in was a new way of looking at it, because I'd always seen it as kind of like, I tell that story to redeem myself.
Mhm.
But actually, there is also that through fair of perhaps care that one of us has for each other. Like if I just sat
Yeah.
there and ate my sandwich, he would look like a bully. If I just sat there and ate
Yeah.
my sandwich, it would be maybe a very forgettable moment. But both of us got something out of it, I think.
Well, and what a lesson, and also knowing that appearances can be deceptive,
Yeah.
right?
No. Exactly. Right.
Because you met him on his own turf,
Mhm.
literally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, and he wasn't expecting that.
Yes, that's right.
And so it's like, no, we're all humans and we all have all kinds of unique skills and superpowers,
Yeah.
including things that other people may see as challenges to overcome that become our superpowers, like you were talking about the ADHD.
Right.
And that's part of what makes you unique
Yeah.
and makes you good at the things that you're good at, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I am so glad that you took this time to talk to me today
Um,
and to,
well, Jill, I
share parts
know
of
that
your life about with our
we're almost
guests.
out of time, but I did want to ask you a
Yeah,
question. I mean,
yeah.
you have so many talents and so many skills, and it seems that you don't. What I've had to learn is to say no to a lot of projects, but I don't know that you may do that too. Maybe you just have like a million things that you would be doing otherwise, but it seems like you lead this incredibly charmed life of doing everything you want to do, and all of them float into the air in terms of the success. It doesn't just sit on the ground. You make things happen. What's the secret?
So for me, it is following my heart and following my intuition. Occasionally, I will get people that approach me with things like, "Hey, we want you to do this or we want you to do that," and if I get a clear no internally, then it's like, "No, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen." Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, if I get a clear yes, though, I go for it. The other thing is I'm really big on collaboration
Hmm.
and doing things with other people.
Hmm.
And so I prefer not to play by myself,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
In my own little sandbox.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that there's more power, there's more reach, there's more creativity when I can work with other people and brainstorm and create something that's way better and more fabulous than I can do with my own limited skill set.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I
And
definitely see
yeah,
that.
yeah. So that's the way I try to live my life. And like I said, anytime I meet people, I also think, is this a possibility that at some point we can build something together in the future?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always been the biggest inspiration, Jill, because you see things that you wanna do, you see
Mhm.
opportunities, and then you just go and do them. Like, when you painted those beautiful children's paintings with
Oh,
animals,
yeah.
you know, and then you're selling them, and then
Yeah.
you wanna write, so you wrote this great book, "Sometimes Art Can't Save You," and you've written, like, probably, like, 60. Have you written over 100 books? Like, you've written so many books, business.
I haven't written over 100, but I have written dozens and dozens. Yeah.
Like
They have
business
my
books.
name on the cover or somebody else's because I
Yes.
do some ghostwriting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah.
you ghostwrite as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done. Alright.
Yeah.
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 So anyway, it's really an inspiration.
But the other thing that I've learned, at least for me personally, is that if I'm if I'm told this is the way that this needs to work because this is all the rules. Like you were talking about marketing and digital marketing, and one of the things that's like the the go-to right in digital marketing is creating funnels.
Mhm.
And I'm not a fan of funnels.
Oh,
I've created funnels in the past, but I find that for me personally, funnels don't work,
okay.
and that I believe in more organic marketing.
Oh,
Um, and I'm not saying that funnels are wrong or whatever. I'm just saying for me personally,
mm,
that's not the way I do things. Right. and I've actually, my two of my businesses are on a fully referral base, because I get plenty of clients from referrals, and I don't need to go hunt down anybody.
Right.
Right. And I also believe that everybody comes to me that I need to be in touch with.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. And, but that's just one example, right?
Mhm.
Or somebody will say like, well, you need to advertise on this platform and, have this much ad spend and stuff. And it's like, no, not necessarily, because there's plenty of people out there that are making it that aren't doing that.
Right. Right.
Right. And so I think that that goes down to knowing yourself
Hmm.
and knowing what really innately, like, yourself exactly how to market those businesses and reach those audiences, those organizations, and reach those audiences, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Where, clearly other people have tried other methods and it's not worked the same,
Right.
or it hasn't worked as well. So it's really understanding, and feeling connected to everything around you, that you know how this is going to work for you,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's
Yeah.
going to work for the people you serve.
Right. Right. For sure. Yeah. Businesses are different, right?
Yeah,
And how like my consulting businesses are not by funnel, but
yeah.
I use the funnel as the product for how we get like masses into things. But I love what you said about that. It's almost like decision making and all these things. There's a convergent aspect. Sometimes you need
Mhm.
to converge. You need to bring people and focus on. Sometimes there's a divergent aspect of ideation where you just
Yeah.
get the idea out as far as possible, and that it also speaks to your qualities. That casting the net wide is giving you the opportunities for work that you want to do, and
Yeah.
for the change that you're making happen. You
Well,
said something about your heart, Jill, and I do have to say, like from the 2 decades that I've known you, you
yeah.
lead with your heart, and it's such poetic beauty, and it makes so much sense to me when you told me about your new company and how this is what you want to bring out into the world, because this is how you have been able to do all of your different work, from writing, from painting, from your businesses that you've run, from teaching students, from affecting all of the great relationships that you have and all the different ecosystems. You've led with one single principle, and that has been with love and heart.
Thank you. That's never occurred to me, to be honest with you. So I love that you brought that up and made me aware of that, because I just, I yeah, I've never looked at it that deeply. It's just more me being me, right? And
Yeah.
I do not have ADHD, but I also don't like to do just one thing.
Yeah.
So so having multiple creative outlets and venues and multiple businesses has always been my thing, because it just feels more me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And yeah,
I love it.
so thank you so much for your time and for your. I'm
Jill?
gonna stop the recording, and then
Okay.
we will. Um, one more thing is, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they best do that?
Oh, they can, uh, let me think about that.
Do you have a website that you'd like to
I
send
do.
people to, or LinkedIn,
Webs
or
Yeah, my website's adrianfung.com.
okay, that makes it easy for them,
Perfect. Yeah.
right? Uh, recording.